I just want to start out by welcoming everyone to our webinar today and thank you for attending. My name is Casey Edwinson. I am the Digital Marketing Coordinator at Rolling Equity Leasing. I'm the digital dude, as they call me here. Before I introduce Joe Roth, the Executive Vice President of Commercial Sales at REL, I just want to have some housekeeping items. As I mentioned earlier, everyone's going to come into the session muted, so please stay muted if you could, and submit any questions you have via the chat mechanism at the top of the session or Q&A. So a few more people are coming in, and that's going to be it for me. I'm going to shut up, not say a word, and I'm going to hand this off to Joe.
Thank you, Casey. Joe Roth, EVP of Commercial Development for REL. A little over a month ago, we kicked off our webinar series with 3 days worth of safety-oriented webinars, and we had pretty great response, and those turned into some great videos that have had a lot of action since we record them. So we're keeping the webinar series alive. And for this go round, we thought it'd be great to talk to some relatively new contractors who have been thriving in their businesses. They've had incredible growth and a lot of success. And we chose some contractors that are dear friends of REL, and we didn't choose them necessarily because they're REL customers, but because we knew the success that they're having in this space, and they all have very unique and interesting stories to tell. So you've heard enough from me. I'm going to go around and get these guys introduced and make sure that we get the ball rolling. And then we've got a whole bunch of great questions to ask them about how they've built their successful businesses, what they do over again if they could, or what they would definitely not do again if they could avoid it. So with that, I'm going to kick it off with Logan. Give me a little background of your business. And then the question I'm going to ask each of you is, how did you find yourself interested in the FedEx line haul space? What drove you into that? And then we'll just go around the room. So kick us off, Logan.
Thanks, Joe. Logan Panasco with Shield Wall Solutions. So we started April 27th of 2023. We hauled our first load for FedEx. We initially came in with 4 purchase contracts of unassigned teams, which if you're asking me what I would recommend doing or not doing, that was maybe not the smartest of moves for us, but definitely learned by fire very quickly. And how I found the space here in FedEx was actually YouTube. So we were looking, my wife and I, Sarah, we were looking for options. Being in the real estate world prior to trucking in with FedEx, I saw kind of the interest rate piece coming and the market changing. So we were looking at alternatives for income for us as the market recovered. And so trucking became an option. I stumbled across the FedEx space on YouTube and then quickly realized the scalability of this business versus where I was at before, and decided to dabble in it and give it a go, which any dabble for me is jumping all the way in. I don't really dip the toe very well. So good, jumped right in, and we've scaled remarkably over the last 2 years. So that's where I'm at.
How many trucks did you start with, and where are you at now?
So we started with 4 trucks, and we are at 18 trucks right now.
Okay. And in which areas of the country?
So we are predominantly in the Southeast. So out of we started in Atlanta and Savannah, and now we are in Savannah and Orlando.
Great. All right. Mr. Nolan Wilson, how about you?
Well, thanks for having me. Nolan Wilson, Night Operations. Similar stories to Logan there. We had wheels turning April, 23 of September. We came in with basically four trucks. We are now up to, it'll be 10 as of next week. So growing nicely. My background came more from a logistics standpoint, which my company, my former company and still existing company that I'm running with this one, is a logistics business. So we dealt a lot in automotive consulting, which of course ran parallel with logistics. So trucking was, I'd say, a second or third language. And my business partner, Sean Iannucci, we were basically searching for something back in 22 to create something new. And we were both researching basically the same business. I think that the FedEx draw was for a lack of better word, predictability, keeping a very solid business, and a lot of our learning, as in Logan's case. There, we got a lot of our information off of YouTube and John Hawley tech videos. So that's how our research process began back in 22. Of course, we visited maybe we crashed it, I'm not sure, the FedEx Summit in Vegas back in 22, and we started going to some events and just picking those experts and veterans' brains that we met at those summits, and just started learning and jumped on the internet, and that's how we basically took a lot of time to form a business plan, and was able to get an opportunity up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and we've been growing ever since.
Excellent. All right. Last but certainly not least, Nick and Christine from Wave.
Go ahead. You want to?
Nick and Christine with Wave Enterprises, and Christine was a teacher for almost 30 years. I did air traffic control, and then had a property management company, and also servicing some cell phone towers. And then Christine wanted to get out of teaching, and I wanted to stop digging. And so we started researching on YouTube and came up with basically the same thing as Nolan and Logan just said, is listening to John Haldy or anything we could find, actually. And then just kind of going from there. We started out with 3 trucks. We have 7 currently, and about to be more here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and the initial part of FedEx came from one of my students. Her father was a P&D guy, and I had no idea what P&D and line haul meant. I just knew that this family seemed to be doing well financially, and I was like, what does her dad do? And so I had that in the back of my mind. And then when when teaching just got to be too much, then I resigned last August. So we did the startup while I was still working full time as a teacher. And for me, I think that was good because I had an income to rely on where I didn't have to worry about do or die with this. So for me, that was great. Also, the attraction of FedEx was that someone with 0 experience in logistics or trucking or anything, I was still able to get in. And between the two of us, Nick being a business owner and his myriad of other skill set, it just worked out really well for us. So we're very happy in the system.
Great. Thank you all. That was wonderful. So let's start out as you weren't all new business owners at the time. In fact, I don't think any of you were actually new business owners, but you were new to line haul. And I believe it was the first time you all had to employ drivers. And so let's talk a little bit about staffing. What were your learnings from that first year, and managing a team and finding the right drivers and keeping drivers and all that? Nolan, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Obviously, there's so many ways to approach how you would go about staffing, finding drivers, whether it's through organizations, recruiters, so forth. And obviously, one thing I think to really preface all of this is there's no right or wrong way to do any of these things. It really basically fits on the owner's, the contractor's perspective, their view of how their business should run according to their strengths and their weaknesses. And I'll answer these questions more based on our point of view and how we did things. So, because I think that's important, because listening to a lot of folks talk and learning through our learning process when we were researching what's the best way. There is no book that says entitled The Best Way for line haul. But there are many ways to slice this cake. The way we approached it was we actually have done all of our staffing internally. Both Sean, my business partner, and myself have done all of that. We have looked into using recruiters, and I think, once again, that could be a way to go. We had a vision for how our business wanted to operate, the people that we wanted to bring in, the mindset that we had for night operations. And, you know, in building your team, if you will, we wanted to be able to talk to those individuals and find out if they were the right fit for us. Obviously, because with business, communication is key, right? It's a big thing. So we wanted to make sure that we are able to have that communication translate between us and our drivers to continue on that pathway to success. And that's really what we found has been, and still to this day, almost 2 years in, has been successful for us. Now, again, as you grow, you know, that obviously can change as you exponentially, you know, things start changing in your business. But right now, that's kind of been our way of doing internal, is just finding those folks that fit best for night operations.
Excellent.
We very much go off the same way. We just being able to talk to the drivers individually and feel them out, how they respond just in a regular conversation is very important to us. And we're starting to incorporate things we've learned even from Logan, culture meeting ahead of time, things like that. Before we even get into the resume or driving or anything, we want to know, does your personality fit with how we want our company to run?
Yeah. We were very blessed also with our original people staying on from when we first got in. We had purchased runs to get started, and we still have all those original drivers. And we knew how important they were with us coming in basically with zero experience, that we relied heavily on our drivers to point us in the right direction. And we still keep in touch with the past owner. There's some family unity there between our drivers and the lady we bought our routes from. So you know, those relationships are super important, and respecting the drivers and their knowledge, especially if you had very little knowledge like us. So
treating them like a professional, they'll act like a professional. Every time we talk to them, we try to make it known that we appreciate what they're doing and that it's not just a job, it's a career for them.
So Logan, before you jump in, I just wanted to ask the question. We both made it sound kind of easy, and I don't think it is. Were there any instances where you had to bring change right away to the business that you bought, whether it be a compensation structure or somebody mentioned culture or accountability? Were there any challenging moments like that? Logan, did you have to bring some culture change with you when you bought your company?
Yeah, absolutely. That was actually a big change that we had to do early on. So when we purchased our contracts, it was no trucks, no drivers. So we were coming in truly blind as to the quality and the character that we were looking for, right? And so, you know, it took us a little while to get started early on. So we've been carrying truck payments for about a month for 4 trucks before we even got a tractor turned on, right? So there was definitely maybe not the best incentive, but there was definitely an incentive for us to get a butt in that seat as fast as possible to get the truck rolling. And the other thing too is, like, I didn't have any baseline for what was the character and driver fit we were looking for versus any applicant that came across, right? And so the first applicants we got definitely were not good character fits for us as a company. So those changes happened very rapidly. And for us, the shift from having somebody in that truck versus having the right person on the truck happened quickly for us, right? I feel like as a new contractor, there's this doom and gloom of having a decline. And I'm not saying that they're great, but what I've definitely learned in communicating with the FedEx line haul staff that I've talked with is I would rather take a decline and just be honest with them, like, hey, I need one more week to get the right person in this truck and trained up, rather than just keep putting the wrong person in the truck, because it just exposes your company to ruining the relationship that you've built so hard with FedEx, as well as the safety aspect of getting an accident or anything else along those lines. And the other thing is getting the wrong person in a truck doesn't necessarily protect you from a decline. I'm sure we've all had that driver who doesn't show up for work or whatever. And the problem is, I think a lot of people will rapidly fill that seat with the next available candidate. And we'll tell ourselves, like, all right, I just need somebody in there right now. But as soon as that candidate's in there, you don't keep looking for the right person, right? In your mind, sweet, seat is filled, I'm going on to the next task. And
Yeah.
you justified to yourself that this was a quick fix, but then you don't do a long-term fix. And so what Sarah and I have discussed is that that's just not something we're willing to sacrifice now. Getting the right person in the truck at first is the priority. Now, we're not always getting that correct, and there are times that it's not a good relationship both ways, right? And so if that's the case, then we work with the driver to find them something better that works for them. And then there are times that you have to make decisions that are best for the team as a whole, because one bad driver can bring down your entire driver pool, whether that's 5 drivers, 2 drivers, or 10 drivers. It doesn't matter. So it's the gateway to your company, and so we protect that with lock and key.
Great. All right. Any other comments on staffing before we move on?
I think so.
Doesn't sound like it. Okay. So you launched your business. You needed some tools behind the scenes to help manage. And so tell us a little bit about how did you set up the office? Did you immediately jump in and purchase some software packages? What were the basic tools that you needed to get things going? Nolan, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Again, this will fall back on the 9 to 12 months of research and the experts that we located and then relied on to find out how we're going to build what we're going to build. So I would rely, and Sean would rely on, and speak with our experts and saying, okay, hey, what are we going to need software wise? There are a ton, obviously. Nowadays there's a ton of options out there. We chose for our company software global entity. It's the worst phrasing ever, but you get my point. For that runs our business, we've been using Haldy Tech from the beginning. Felt like a natural fit because we learned a lot about them. But we did our due diligence by checking out some other software companies out there. And I mean, that's essentially for our business. We're using a lot of other tech companies out there. Of course, we're using like Ground Cloud for all of our cameras. We found has been really good. Been pretty happy with that relationship. We've used, I think, Trimble for our ELD packages, and we've kept all this the same. But again, all this, I mean, like when you said, hey, is there any other comments about staffing? Yeah, we could talk about staffing probably until 9 o'clock tonight, right? I mean, there's so much to talk about, and Logan hit on a lot of great points there. But we're just basically brushing the surface of each of these categories. But that's end of the day, for our tech and our software, it all goes back to how we started and doing the research and talking to the people and getting a feel for what fits for you. And that's what we did. And some of those tech companies that we've utilized right now have been great. Same folks we're using here today.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think when we first got started, I didn't on board with a lot of different software at first. I kept everything that the previous contractor had. She had Lytix cameras. We had Omnitrax for ELDs. She used TruckSpy for IVMRs. So that's kind of where I started. And then I was doing my own accounting on free Wave accounting software online. To keep my books. I was trying to keep costs at a minimum of things that until revenue started coming in, because I'm very, very conscientious about the financial, side of things. So anything that I could put on myself, I certainly did. And then as time went by and things started growing more, then I might have added something. So then we added Haldy Tech in, and I saw the great outcomes with that, as far as we realized how inefficient some of our trucks were that came when we first bought the business. And so then we slowly started getting rid of those trucks and then started leasing more from REL just to help with the fuel economy, and that made a huge difference. And then we then signed up with it was TLC companies, now People Lease, as a PEO. So they handle all of our payroll, and it's like having your own HR office. So I know it is a little bit expensive, but it takes my mind off of, paying taxes, I have at my fingertips, I have any kind of HR form that I might need. They're super helpful when you can call in if you have a situation, like they helped us figure out our PTO. And so they're very useful for, having your back office people if you can't, afford to have your own HR employees, if you will. So I highly recommend People Lease for that reason itself.
Yeah,
Excellent.
I think kind of building off of what Nolan had said before, kind of best idea doesn't always win, right? I think one of the things that all of us on this call would talk about is that we didn't come in with the best idea that that we're using right now, but all of us were dedicated to the process of improvement, right?
Mhm.
And so you could have all of the top software that the top contractor in America might be using or whatever, but or anyone's using, but if you don't know how to utilize that software and
Right.
really wring out the benefits, then like it doesn't matter, right? And so I think there's something to be said for learning the business before it's fully optimized. Now there are definitely some things that you should optimize early on so you get the data points to analyze,
Mhm.
right? And I think we were in the same boat as what you were talking about, with kind of really balancing out, profits versus expenses early on. And one of the things that Sarah and I are very mindful of is making sure that we have an accountability for how much is our time worth. Like what are we doing, and what is that pay rate? And if it's something that I can outsource, like IVMRs, like for what I think is $7 a month or something like that, versus how much time it would take me to do that without the software program
Right.
is ridiculous. Like that is the one, boom, get that off. And I think again with Haldy Tech, or we use Forward Arrow, getting that data point on how efficient your trucks are running, and your like where are you buying fuel at, right? Like
Yeah.
like there's a bunch of data points that you're for sure missing, but you're trying to save the $15 or the $50 a truck, and you're missing the $300 a week of spend on that
Right.
truck that you could avoid. So I would say don't be afraid of dabbling with some of the software, because especially in this day and age with the AI that's coming out, there's so much efficiencies that you can build into that as a small business and really compete with the bigger businesses.
I agree with that.
So tag along question to that. You've all mentioned kind of some experimentation. There's no, perfect answer. You kind of have to find your own way. And Nolan, you've mentioned more than once, maybe didn't use the exact word networking, but you've used talking to other people and learning. So how critical is that element as you start up as a contractor, to have a team of people, mentors, if you will, or people you trust to share these ideas with and gather? How did you all figure out that this was the right tool for me to use for this? It can't just all be on your own, I assume.
No, and nothing, that goes back to the old adage. I mean, nothing beats experience. So, uh, when we were looking to get into this business, it was trying to find the people that have found success, and to speak with those people in depth, write down questions, have conversations amongst ourselves on how we wanted to build this business. How we're building our little city, right? And you want to grow it in a way that it remains strong as you continue to go upward. And really, we found, okay, well, let's talk to the people that have been doing it for 20, 30 years. What, not necessarily of who they used, but what was their process? And talking to those folks and having, and I'm talking a multitude of people here across the board, whether it was mechanics, whether it was TSPs, whether it was someone in software, or whether it was in somewhere in some uh, technical capacity. It didn't make any difference. To form that background of folks that you could have these conversations with, enabled us to then find a process in which we could hone our own process, if that makes sense, to be able to build off of that. So yeah, I think to be able to reach out, and obviously you got to learn on your own, and you've got to consume, intake all the information. But as you get that information comes more questions, and then it's, well, hey, okay, I see this works. I'm hearing this works really good, but the question you really have to answer for your own company is, does it work for us? And because everybody's got a different view of what is more comfortable, it fits them. And to touch on what Logan was saying too, time, one of the biggest things too is time. Don't try to do all this yourself. It will bring you down, productivity down. It'll bring everything down and create that unstable environment, or that plateau that we're trying to build upwards on. So you want to build that strong. But starting with these field of experts, doing your due diligence and research, finding out their processes, their mindset of what they did, I think will help and be a great start to get started.
And real quick, one of the things that I literally just jotted it down, that you said right there that I want to make sure other people who are on the call really pick up on, is it's not asking the people that are where you want to be what they are doing, asking them how they got there, right?
Yes.
Like your 4-truck, 6-truck, 10-truck, 20-truck operation will not do the same thing as someone's 100-truck operation. And if you try and implement the same strategies that they are implementing in a 100-truck operation, you will set yourself up for failure. But now asking that same contractor, what did you do at 10 trucks to get to 20 trucks, right? Like that was the thing in the line. Like what did you do versus what are you doing? And I think that is the piece that I know everyone that's on this call has asked those questions that way for growth.
Yeah,
That's great.
totally agree with that. And the whole networking thing was invaluable. The first summit that we went to, and we met so many people, we learned we learned so much at that line haul summit. I can't even explain how explosive it was for us, because we learned about truck leasing, and met so many people who were so willing to share information and help. And that's one thing I'm super grateful with this line haul community, is how much everybody is willing to share. Where, we can text Logan or we can text whoever and just a call. And it might seem like, nothing is a silly question or a silly scenario. It's like you have to have information, and being able to call up people or email someone is like a great thing. So if you've never been to a line haul summit, get yourself to one, because that network opportunity is like,
That was the biggest advantage for us, was
sure.
meeting the group of contractors that all want to do well together. Really opened our eyes and was like, oh man, we definitely can do this, and we can do it to whatever level we want.
Yeah.
And it's
Awesome.
not really what makes just to refine and jump in on that great word about community, because it really is. This is not, I mean, sure, there's competition everywhere, but we're not really competing against each
Right.
other. We're building, and everyone started from zero at some point. So having those conversations, and it really truly is a really great community when you go to these summits or make some phone calls to folks in the business. I have found 100% of the people being very cordial, very inviting, and wanting to share, because everyone has been, where we've all been. We've all been at zero at some point, and to be able to progress that up, everyone's willing to help out. So it is a terrific community.
Yeah, for sure.
So I want to jump in real quick. There's a question that's timely for this. John Haldy asks the group, all contractors are super busy, and now you're talking about all this different experimentation and networking and go out to the shows and meet people. How do you create the time to do those types of things?
We kind of got time.
It's prioritizing, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, absolutely. And you're not going to meet everybody at your first one. This is why we go to every single event we possibly can. If it's not both my wife and I, at least one of us needs to go to these events, because it's also a relationship, right? It's not just I met you one time, hey, can I call you 9 months later and ask you a question? It's a relationship that you build with both the contractors as well as the vendors, right? I think that I really do not want to underestimate the power of having a good vendor relationship. Like if you're having a problem with software and you've never talked to who runs your software except for when you have a problem, like I'm not saying they're going to purposely neglect you, but if you're talking to them on a monthly basis, just checking in, hey, what's coming down the pipe for the software, or hey, can I give you some feedback whenever you guys are doing an upgrade? Like next time you need something, like you're going to get what you're looking for a whole lot faster. And I think The advantage we have in FedEx as being a contractor run organization is how quick we can pivot and move. And having those relationships both with the contractors and your vendors to pivot and move when you need to, like that's what gives you strength, and that's what gives us all strength, right? And like, how do we beat out UPS? How are we beating out Amazon? How are we beating these guys? Well, when FedEx gets a new customer, sweet, they can stand up 5 trucks in 2 weeks because they have contractors they can call that have credit lines already established. They have relationships with where they're getting their trucks. All of the pieces are already in line. And that way, when FedEx gives me a call, like, hey, can you stand up a truck? Like, yeah, I'll have it ready for you in 2 weeks. Like staff ready to go. Like, that's what they're looking for. And so I think it's a process. You have to block time at these events to go have dinner, go grab a cocktail, go pick someone's brain, and then make sure you see that person at the next event, build that relationship, and then also look for your next target for how I can strategically build my business. And it's kind of like your personal cabinet, right? Like Nolan, kind of what you're talking about, having those people around you. If you have these trusted advisors, how well do you trust them, and how good is that relationship if you're not blocking time for them?
Yeah.
Right.
And to jump on that, of the question of how do you prioritize time to go to these events, I think, how can you afford not to prioritize time for these events? Information is key. And if you're structured properly and you've got your experts and your foundation is sound, you create your own time. And then, as we've done, and I'm sure everyone sitting here has then reinvested that time to find out what's coming new, because that's always the caveat that's coming. And maybe not new isn't bad, or maybe new isn't good. How to optimize, and learn better ways of doing things to create efficiency. Efficiency creates more time. So it really just comes down to structure and priorities.
Yeah, as well as I would also like to say that, we have a really great BC in place. So because we do that, that allows us to be, step away. Obviously, we're always available to be contacted, but I feel very good about if we're going to an event that things are taken care of, because we have properly, trained and properly, communicate with our BC on a daily. We're excited for the Dallas event because we're bringing our BCs with us this time so that they can kind of get to start building their network, which I think is important for, BCs to know other BCs as well and other contractors so that they can kind of, flourish like we did with our networking with other contractors.
Right. All right. I'm pivoting us a little bit, but I want to make one quick comment in between. You may have seen Casey posted a survey right after we got started. This is not a survey asking questions about how good this webinar is, but it's generally a survey about being a new contractor in this space. So please take a moment and fill out that survey, and then we will share results with everybody just after the webinar is over. Okay. Next question, and this is a biggie. We probably won't be able to spend as much time as we would need to, but let's talk about fleet. Give me your number one bit of advice for overall fleet management, and then your number one piece of advice about maintenance. Who wants to kick us off? Maybe Nick and Christine.
Well, we recently scheduled a meeting with Pat at REL, and Kevin was on the meeting as well to discuss fleet strategy. So just having that information meeting and ties in with what we were just talking about, your relationships with your vendors of, finding out what's coming down the road as far as, trucks, the emissions things, all that, where we are with our leases, and then spacing those things out and balancing it with trucks that we own. So I think having that conversation was really helpful to us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, Logan.
Yeah, I mean, for us, the big focus on fleet for us in 2025 is bringing as much maintenance and management of the fleet in-house. So we just hired our first mechanic full-time to the company this week. Actually, that's where Sarah's at right now, is onboarding the new mechanic. So
Awesome.
that has been our big move, is, kind of how do we maximize our uptime with our trucks? Because we're at that point now that we're paying for truck payments for trucks that we knew weren't going to be running, but I'm just budgeting for trucks to be down for a PM service at a dealership or a warranty issue or whatever that might be. You have to plan for that in your business. If you have 4 runs and only 4 trucks, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure long term if you're not budgeting. And the other piece too is just having those trucks available for growth, right? So if I can maximize the uptime with my trucks for the same cost or similar cost, now I have an extra asset to offer to FedEx for when they have that spare run or whatever it is that they need covered. And then that comes back around when those growth opportunities come. So I think by maximizing our fleet maintenance and getting that, it's really going to help us both grow with our customer as well as, prolong the longevity of our trucks.
So let's get a little specific with that. When it comes to your fleet, Logan, what is your philosophy? Do you want to run always new equipment? Do you want to run used equipment? Do you always have to have warranty? Do you have a specific brand, or is there anything like that that's been your philosophy for success when it comes to your fleet?
Yeah. So as a young growing fleet, I think for us, again, this isn't going to work for everybody. For us, we wanted to run new equipment under warranty and similar manufacturer. So we ran all Volvo Mack because parts are interchangeable. I have fuel filters that say Volvo in my Mack trucks and fuel filters that say Mack in my Volvo trucks. Being able to have the cross capabilities of all of our parts allows us to buy in a bigger bulk and save more money, right? And then when you're really small and narrow margins, every penny counts. So maximizing that helps us save money. The next piece is newer trucks for us because I want less downtime for major repairs and more predictability in when I'm going to have those problems. Like I said, we started with all teams. So fixing a problem in New Mexico when I'm in Savannah or in Florida is a really, really difficult thing. Now, the REL Solution Center definitely helps and maximizes that for us. Shameless plug for you guys.
Thank you.
I want my gold star for the day. But other than that, like it just, if you can't put hands or eyes on that truck on a regular basis because it's off running teamwork making you money, which is fantastic. I want it to be continuously moving and have confidence. The other piece too is a retention tool for us is these drivers, like I can't tell you how many drivers have told me they've never been in a new truck before. And
huge.
they love
Yes.
being in a brand new truck. Right. And so when you look at, maybe you save $250 a week on truck payment because of how old or whatever manufacturer your truck is, but it saves you that $250. My next question is how much are you spending on recruiting or retention to save those drivers from putting them on a really nice piece of equipment? The other thing too is when you put a driver in a nice piece of equipment, they take pride in it, right? And if they're not, then you're not doing the character interview at the front because this is where that all comes. It all ties in together as a business. And so for us, putting good quality equipment out there is us putting our money where our mouth is that, hey, we're a driver focused company. I'm going to put you in good equipment. It's going to run because if it's not running, you're not making money. We're not making money. And warranties just, again, I don't have the war chest to replace a, detonated D13, $30,000 sitting there. That's just not where we're at as a company. And so that warranty to protect us from any of those horrible situations that can arise from that is just well worth it as a young company. Now I've talked to contractors who are way farther along in the process and much bigger than us who decide to run their equipment a lot longer, but they have full maintenance shops. Like they can detonate a motor, they can pay the $30,000, but that mechanic that they have on staff is going to have that truck up and running in 48 hours. Like I don't have that capability. So I think this is one of those things that I would say everyone on this call would agree with. Like you have to plan for your business where you're at, not just where you want to be.
So I saw lots of thumbs ups and head nodding, especially from Nick and Christine. Yeah. Nolan, when it comes to your strategy for trucks, is there any variance to what Logan's doing?
No, very similar. Oh, sorry, Nolan, go
ahead. We'll get back to you, sir.
Yeah.
No, I think there's a lot of similarities. I mean, Logan's got a lot of team runs. So the way we looked at this, and I'm all for all new team runs. When you're going long distances, it's really hard, as he said, to repair something across the country. So I think you kind of got to ask yourself, what tool do you need that fits the job that you have, right? And I completely agree. When you're doing team runs, you want new stuff with warranties. Absolutely. We have a mixed bag. We do a lot of regional solo runs as well as team runs. So we do a little bit of both. And we found out our strategy for our fleet and how we service our fleet. First, we start off, how do we want to get vehicles? And we've purchased new, we lease from REL, and we've also purchased some used vehicles as well too that are later model, lower mileage, which we found out to be quite good for solo and regional runs. Reason being, if there is an issue, there isn't that far to go to get the truck repaired. So we found that has worked best for us. And again, this is just trying to paraphrase a very in-depth subject. But in terms of, how we optimize our fleet, how we chose our type of vehicles, we prefer to stick with one brand, for a lack of better, to basically that way we know, and we're big Cummins fans. So everything we have has got a Cummins engine. And we know this is good because we can follow what's going on. We've done a lot of research. Again, going back to the research, going back to the experts, it always starts there. And we found that was our best motor for us. And by having the same trucks and the same parts, things can be interchangeable. When you have problems, you've seen that problem again down the road. You start to develop a rapport, whether you may not be mechanically inclined. You start seeing patterns here with your fleet, with your trucks, and certain positive things, certain negative things. And you know how to efficiently counteract and attack those issues. So that's what we have found is best, to have something more of a standardized fleet where everything is the same. And it's been pretty successful with us. But yeah, we found a mixture of, depending on what run you have, what application, what environment, that you could go a used route as long as you know the history and it's mechanically sound and on the lower end of mileage. I wouldn't recommend buying something over 500,000 miles. You're just going to ask for problems. But we found in the regional runs and solos, we could get stuff around 150, 250K and be in terms of mileage and run those. But definitely team runs, I highly recommend new leases, new purchases to minimize those problems, because those can be difficult problems to run into down the road.
Sure.
I would,
All
maybe
right,
this
Vic,
is
let
the
her
right.
rip.
Oh, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to say, one of the things that we implemented this year too, and it was from Tim Goff's webinar on a tire program, is that you should establish a tire program for yourself as well. So we schooled up a lot on tires. Well, me more than Nick, but buying a tire that has a really good casing, and what does that mean? And will my tire shop hold my casings for me and turn, a steer tire into a drive tire? So educating yourself on that, and also knowing that can be tax exempt, was something that I learned about this year too. So check with your accountants on those things, what can be tax exempt, as far as things for truck purchases and whatnot. So make sure that's important too.
Yeah, and fleet strategy, we like the whole thing where somebody's watching our trucks, well, especially our teams, but it's 24/7. That service is huge, and we don't even get the call. I mean, we'll hear about it in the morning, but that's, the REL will handle it, let our manager know it's handled, or the drivers, and then we can wake up and be like, wow, that happened, but it was all handled and they're back on the road. Everything's good to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the plug. There was a question that came in that's aligned to this, and that question was, talk a little bit about the importance of your fuel economy and your experience with new trucks as it relates to economy, and how has that translated to profits for you all?
One thing that I'll jump in real quick is that we noticed it's not necessarily even, well, it's all about the state you purchase the fuel in and how they're taxed. So if we go to Phoenix, we're only going to put a couple 100 miles worth of fuel in until we get to Rialto, where we can use that advantage for that huge tax there. It might be more initially in fuel, but you get it back at the end. So just where, what state and how they're taxed and how it falls in your line, because drivers don't really necessarily like to just put a few gallons in, I don't think. That's something you definitely got to teach them and be like, no, don't just fill it up. Just get enough to get you to there. And then that takes a little explaining because that's their time. They're not driving and stuff, but that's pretty easy to get over.
Yeah, let me put a plug in here real quick. This is not an REL plug, but if you aren't versed in fuel and fuel taxation, there is a great session that John Haldy and Pat McKay recorded. You can find it on our YouTube channel. It is, you'll have to watch it twice probably. There's so much information in there about how you manage your fuel. But if you're considering coming into this space and you haven't spent a few hours diving into that, you're burning money.
For sure.
So I definitely recommend you check that out. Any
And
other
Haldy-
comments on fuel?
Oh,
Sorry.
I was just going to say Haldy Tech helped a lot with that too.
Yep.
Like you see what you lost in fuel revenue, and how you can then flip that over. So that was a big one for us.
I think the other thing too is like what is the usage of the tractor, right? So my spot tractors that are only going, 13 miles one way with an empty, and then 13 miles with a fully loaded super heavy 53. If I'm looking at that fuel economy versus my truck that runs from Savannah to Orlando with no elevation change other than one bridge in Florida, like
Yeah.
so take that into account too when you're looking at your truck utilization, right? So if I have a truck that's probably not the most fuel efficient truck in my fleet, do I have that truck run down to Orlando every night, or do I have that truck predominantly do spots, right? And so I have a truck that is not necessarily the most fuel efficient beast in the world, but my drivers love driving it because it looks cool. And we'll let them run it down to Orlando every once in a while. But it's also, we want to be mindful as a company that like that's not the truck that I want to be doing long haul all the time, especially when I have a brand new Mack truck that's going to go and get me 7.5, almost 8 MPG, on a very regular basis. And once these, just like the Cummins, once these MP8s get worn in at 100,000 mile, like I see about a half a MPG better in fuel economy once I cross that 100K threshold on these trucks.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Right.
The one other quick thing, however you do it, the key is to watch these numbers, watch the efficiency, whether you're using whatever technology, whether it's straight through your, we use some over the air with PACCAR, with Kenworth. We can monitor segments of time of watching the efficiency of the trucks, and you can actually then kind of graph these things and we play a game at having a motorsports background, which I am always trying to boost the efficiency through lighter weight oils, through synthetic this, through higher airflow this, you name it. But you can watch this and watch the increase of efficiency in your MPG. And also you can spot problems before they happen. When we just had a vehicle, a tractor recently that was getting me 7.5 miles per gallon, that's now dipped down into the 6s, which we found out we had a bad, basically a bad sensor in there. You go in there, we got that thing repaired, boom, instantly back up. So there's a lot of things that you can find just by, again, monitoring all aspects, monitoring the tax where you purchase, monitoring the right tool for the job, and then obviously monitoring the efficiency of the trucks, as you go through life.
And Joe, well, kind of building off of that too is, with the fuel card changing, if you're wanting to watch how much you're spending on fuel, you need to watch where we're getting fuel now, right? So we just lost that TA benefit. And so if you have a driver who's used to billing or filling up at TA, you throw them in that new fuel card, you're now going to spend about 30 to 40 cents more per gallon on that truck with that new FedEx card versus the REL fuel card we had last week, right? And so, we're in that transition phase right now, as everyone else is across the fleet, of a couple of my trucks, their new fuel card is not working. So I have drivers that are filling up at TA, and I'm scolding other drivers who are filling up at TA because they got the new fuel card, right? So you're playing the ninja game of who's got which fuel card and filling up where. But as we fully transition into this new fuel card, I think that's going to be, you have the drivers that have been driving for years filling up at certain locations that now you're not getting the benefit.
Yeah. All right. Home stretch. And I promise to be respectful of everyone's time. We're cutting this thing off at 2:00 Central sharp. But our last question, and I'm going to make it a three-parter, so hopefully everybody can follow along. Doing it all over again from the start, what would you do the same? What would you do different? And what was your biggest fear coming into this space to begin with? Nick and Christine, you ready?
Well, I had some notes here. What would I do the same? I would do this all over again. No, without a doubt, get into it. Even though I like zero experience, I was able to do it. I would hire an attorney for any transactions that I do in the future. I would set up my business when I'm setting up my business without my home address as my business address. Advice, make sure that, you know, you're doing your due diligence, that you're checking in with your software and you're learning your software over time. Sometimes, you know, if I'm not the one watching, you know, Omnitrax, then maybe I don't go in there enough. But so I kind of set myself up on a schedule to check into all my portals regularly. I don't know about you.
No, that says it all.
And what was your biggest fear? And I know this was an add-on, but somebody submitted this question, but what was your greatest fear jumping into this?
Failing. I mean, not being able to do it, not being able to hold a full-time job and do this successfully. I think that was my biggest thing. But I wanted to be out of teaching so badly. I made it work. You know, we made it work. You know, I wouldn't have been able to do this without Nick's support. He granted me the ability to get things up and started because he knew I needed to do that part on my own, that I had to go through some, you know, the pain of it, of going through it, so I would feel the confidence of doing it. So I'm grateful that he allowed me to do that. And now that things got up and running, and then now he's jumped in and now we're, you know, just on a trajectory. That's awesome. So
You just learn so much more when you're personally doing it. If I can just, it's like I get a little dumber the more I use Google and asking all the questions. Like I want to use my own brain, and that's how you gain confidence, is doing the things yourself and taking some hits along the way.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. How about you, Nolan?
You know, without the risk of sounding arrogant, but I think I'll just be honest. I don't think we would have done really as a whole anything different. And I think that really comes down to preparation of, you know, we were in this, I'm going to say close to a year before we even got a contract or turned a wheel. And you know, I guess the adage of, you know, preparation and then meets execution, you know, will lend success. If that's not an adage, I guess I just made it up. But, you know, you know, having those our people, our folks that we relied on and learned from and took notes from, that we felt really confident coming in. And I guess the only really fear is not being successful enough. And I'll be, you know, when you have a process in place and you trust it and you believe it, then it just comes down to execution. And yes, of course there are a lot of little things that you'd look back and say, okay, yeah. And honestly, there's little things going forward, and I assume 15 years from now there's going to be things that we wish we had changed. And that's why this thing is labeled as a process. Every day is a process. There are things that we definitely have implemented, especially in terms of one big thing, hiring drivers. And of course, all of our, and this is just an example, but our drivers that we hire, and everything has a camera in it, we spend extra time watching those drivers for their first several weeks. I mean, watch and coach, and you think you know everybody, and that's the goal when you hire, is you want to find the right folks. But you know, and I think Logan pointed this out earlier, that you really don't know until time, you know, proof is in the pudding. So that's one big thing that we continue to focus on in terms of spending more time with new folks that we hire, in terms of watching driving habits. I mean, they're out there on wheels representing FedEx and your company. So it's they're the ambassadors out there on the road driving around some pretty heavy machinery. So those are some just a couple things. I mean, but I think really have the process in place, have your experts in place, and then have faith, and it's going to work. You're going to execute.
Great. Thank you. All right, Logan.
All right,
Let's
for
have it.
us, so not again for me. Like, what would I not do again? You know, kind of what Nolan was talking about. Like, a lot of these things, lessons learned, have led to the improvements that I have in my company. So, how many of these, if I
Right.
didn't do it, would I be where I am? Right. But to
Right.
not cop out of the answer, like compromising on our culture, right? Like that there were hires that we made because we felt like we needed to make the hire right now because we needed it under all this pressure. Peak was coming or whatever it was. And that has never worked out for us. Not once. So, I mean, that's a no-go for us. It's a not even negotiable. Same, like the two things that really stick out for us is picking my mentors and my peer group that I hang out with, right? Who am I talking to on a regular basis? I was very strategic about that. Nolan, I think you and I actually went to the same thing in Vegas the same year. I didn't meet you there, but that is where we kind of kicked this off. And I met some very successful contractors there who I would not have my contracts or my business without having those relationships. And the last piece on the same that has allowed us with minimal capital to be able to grow with FedEx when they needed it was leasing trucks. And again, not a shameless plug for REL here, but like from a banking background, when you own your own truck versus leasing a truck, it is viewed very differently in lending, right? And so we were able to get way more credit lines to grow way faster with less capital up front with leasing. Now you got to be very smart about this and not overextend yourself. So like, you know, I'm not just saying like, you know, go get a blank check and we'll be fine. But like there was a lot of strategy in how we built our business based off of that. And then the fear factor for me, two of them stand out really, really strong. One was the very first time that I handed a set of keys over to a driver of a truck that I just signed over $190 some odd $1,000 lease for. And you're like, well, I guess we've known each other for 4 hours now, so I hope you bring it back. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so like I really remember that, just watching the truck drive away for the first time, like, oh my God. But from a business standpoint, like the fear of like or pressure of failing when I have so many other families depending on us, right?
Yes.
I think that's one of the things
Yeah.
is as we've grown, like Shield Wall Solutions now supports over 28 families, right? I think we might be at 32 families now with our new hire. And so like remembering that these decisions we make, it's not like we all invested like our money in this so we can all grow and have big successful businesses, but you have drivers who have signed on with their family on your journey with you, and there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, which like that has not escaped me. It is still my greatest fear is letting down the employees that look up to us to make the right decisions.
Yeah.
Agree 100% on that.
Awesome. All right, we're really close to time, and there's a couple of things I have to take care of first. Logan, Nolan, Christine, Nick, thank you very, very much for giving your time. You did an excellent job. I think everybody found the information to be very valuable. I guess that'll show up later in the comments. Another thing I want to mention, there's a lot of plugs for networking and events. Well, we've got a huge event coming up later this month in Dallas, the Line Haul News Summit. If you haven't already registered for the Line Haul News Summit, you need to do yourself a favor and find a way down to Dallas and get to the summit. It's the biggest event of the year. And then there's a really killer party going on Thursday night of the summit that you'll want to attend as well. That's all I'm going to say about that.
What?
Say
Oh,
what?
yeah.
Yeah. And then there was some talk about REL trucks. If you're interested in learning more about our REL lease program, we've got some trucks on the ground right now that are tariff free, that will remain tariff free until they're off the lot. So as you know, model year 26s are going to be landing. Price of those is going to be much higher, and the tariffs, who knows what the impact's going to be. But let's get these trucks while they're less expensive than we all know they're going to be in the very near future. And I think that's it for me. Thanks once again. I am going to make my commitment and end this thing 1 minute before 2:00. And if you need information about REL or you want to reach out to anybody for a deeper discussion, send a note to sales@teamrel and we'll help you out.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you much.
We'll
Have
see
a
you all
great afternoon,
in
everybody.
Dallas.
Yeah,
All
see
right,
everybody
sounds
in
good.
Dallas.
I'm not